name is Adelita Grijalva. I am the very proud granddaughter of a bracero. I'm a hardworking Mexican immigrant, and also my grandpa is a copper miner. So have two very strong union influences in my life. And my dad is a member of Congress, was a member of Congress. And I think that in one generation that happened because of really hard work and public education. And I that is part of like the legacy and environment that shaped me and is why I am fighting for that opportunity for everyone in ZD7 and just to have that opportunity for their own American dream. So I am a mom of three kids. My daughter just graduated from Pueblo High School, my alma mater, 2 weeks ago. Just seems like yesterday. So I have two high schoolers. My son Raul is going to be a junior at Pueblo, and my son Joaquin is going to be a freshman at Pueblo. And so I can't tell you the joy it brings me to have them walk onto the campus. It's just, and I'm a very proud product of public education, and my kids have all always gone to public schools. So I served on the Tucson Unified School District Governing Board for 20 years. And one of the reasons that I ran was because I was running this program called Teen Court. And part of my job was to start a school-based program to try to help prevent out-of-school suspension and detentions. Like, let's try to come up with some other more holistic, our data shows that we need more workshops and education, less about punishment. And when I went specifically to our TUSD schools, they were just, the interventions were non-existent. And so that's why I ran. My dad threw the idea out there when I graduated from high school. He's famous for these little doodles. And he, on my graduation card from high school, said Adelita Grijalva for TUSD. So he put the bug in there before I had any interest in doing any of that. But, when I ran for school board, one of the sitting board members said, I don't want the girl on the board at this time. And I was 29. I didn't have any children and I wasn't married. And that came up as like, why does she care about this? This has nothing to do with our kids. It has to do with like a stepping stone. And this is more about her, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was like a all out assault on me and why I wanted to do this when really, I think my reasons were very transparent. I wanted to make sure that young people had a voice in our school system. And when you looked at the board at the time, that's why they were calling me a girl. Most of the people there were retired, former administrators, and there's no disrespect implied there. It's just trying to make sure that there are other voices as part of the conversation. And so that's something that I've always fought for. So while I was on the school board, I served, I think in my 18th year, and people were asking, are you going to run again? And I said, no, I'm not. This will be my last year. And then very unexpectedly, Richard Elias passed away, and he's supervisor for District 5 and a very good friend. And it was COVID, lockdown was already starting to happen. And I got a call from his wife, Emily, and said, we can't lose the seat. So you need to run. And I'm like, all we know in the Grijalva campaigns are door to door, talking to people. How do we do that and not communicate? And I mean, it was very scary. COVID, we didn't know how it was transmitted. People were afraid to leave their houses. Yeah. So how am I going to go door to door? And also getting those petition signatures were all physical. Mm-hmm. So in 7 days, we collected over 1,800 signatures. And people were dropping off. I mean, I had so many, one name, one sheet. I was, we were spraying everything with Lysol and carrying gloves. And it was really, what my dad started was a movement here locally. And it was just an extension of that. And so we got on the ballot and won. We had a contested primary and a general opponent and won that seat. And then have just worked very hard to try to bring together voices and discuss what are the issues in our community that we need to work on. And so I'm happy to talk about some of the initiatives that we did, but I think so much of that is trying to connect nonprofit, K-12 systems, workforce development, businesses, and our governments, and how they're really supposed to be working together. The city, state, county, federal, how do we all work together to accomplish some goals? And we made some really great inroads. So I'm really proud of the work we did, but I'm running to protect our public schools. I'm running to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and give people in our community a voice, because so many feel like it's being snuffed out. Our immigrant communities, our LGBTQ communities, our environmental communities, indigenous. There's just so many that are being marginalized and pushed out. But that's why I'm running.
You have answered my next question before I had a chance to ask it. So I'm going to move on to another one. I've asked this of all candidates, and it's an open-ended question, but I like your answer on while you're out in the field, what is one misconception about you that you hear a lot that you may want to take this opportunity to correct the record on?
A lot of it is just, understanding that I have my own chops. Like, so yes, I am a very proud daughter of Raul Grijalva, have always been, will always be, but that I have been in elected office for 22 years, 20 of which was on a school board that was volunteer but elected position. And so it is a result of like my 26 years at a nonprofit and 20 years on the TUSD board and 4 years on the Pima County Board of Supervisors. 2 of those years overlapped. So if you're trying to do the math and you're like, that doesn't math. I was president of the TUSD board at the same time that I was on the Board of Supervisors those first 2 years.
Yep.
I think that it is those conversations that I've had with people and coalitions that we've been able to continue to work together. That nothing has been handed to me. And respectfully, the bar is set very high for me, and it's always been. I mean, there is being compared to Raul Grijalva is incredibly difficult because he's so amazing. So when you talk about the work that we've done together in this community to push forward initiatives and being accessible, like that is who I am. I have changed, I've been told often. I've changed very little from the time I graduated from high school. And I think that some of that is because I'm surrounded by a family who sees all of these elected offices as public service. And that's what it should be. It's not about me, like a highlight here. It is about bringing the voices of Southern Arizona with me to everywhere I go. So whether it is in this office or whatever my road should carry me, that's why I'm doing this. And I have to always look myself in the mirror and look my kids in the eye. And if I am making a decision that I can't do that, then it's the wrong decision to make. And fortunately for me, I have so many people around me that I never, ever, ever assume that I am an expert on every issue that's coming across my desk. But I do know people who are, and I can call them. And I have long-standing relationships with Teachers Union and TEA, the Tucson Education Association, endorsed me every year of my candidacy through TUSD, and the Arizona Education Association endorsed me for this race. Like AFSCME endorsed me for all of my TUSD races and endorsed me for this race, the local labor unions. And I think that it's because when I say I'm going to be there, I'm there. When I say that I'm accessible, I am. And, I have been in elected office for 22 years, and I have missed 3 meetings total in 22 years. I have 3 kids. I had 3 C-sections. Ta-da! So So I wasn't there because I was literally in the hospital. And one of the times I actually called in and said, hey, can't go, I have a newborn. But I think I take this work very seriously because it is a privilege to represent people. It's not a responsibility for me. It's a lot of work, but it is very rewarding and like soul fulfilling work that you get to have an impact in spaces that people like me don't have a seat at the table.
So let's talk a little bit about CD7. What is, right now the big discussion, I think, in politics is the big, beautiful bill. Every day there seems to be a new issue. So I know there's a lot there. It's 1,000 pages, but I'm going to ask you a difficult question and ask you to focus on one of your concerns about it, and then let parlay that into what you can do as a member of the minority power right now.
Okay, so it is a horrible bill that has so many layers on how it's negatively impacting communities, especially those in CD7. So I'll talk about the cuts to Medicaid. Medicaid, not only do we have 70% of our CD7 community on Medicaid, you also have students that are in our schools that have exceptional needs or have an individualized education plan that requires some additional supports. You have physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, counseling services, interventions. Those are paid for by Medicaid for our schools. Tucson Unified, largest district in Southern Arizona, is 100% free and reduced lunch because there are so many children living in poverty in our district that the federal government said, you don't need to justify, you don't have to do this. We understand that there are so many children living in poverty that every child in your schools are going to get free lunch. That's significant. Those numbers are huge. And so when you look at the impacts of those cuts on individual, on students, just on students, but then overlay that with the grandfather that is a veteran and getting services at the VA, and they want to cut 80,000 people from that system. Have already cut a significant number. Now he can't get his medical appointments and services that he needs in order to be able to be a guardian to some of those young people, some of those students. I mean, it's just repeated assaults to a very underserved and marginalized community. And those hits keep coming. So I think that when we look at the distribution of wealth, and the fact that if you're making $17,000 a year, you're living far below the federal median income, you're making $17,000 a year, you are going to be reduced. Your return is reduced by $1,000. But if you are in the 1%, you're going to get almost $400,000 back. Yeah. How does that make sense in any world? That distribution of wealth is going from the majority, the 99% of us, to 1%.
Right.
It just is. And I will say, the one thing that really gives me hope is that bill passed by one vote in the House. So this race could make the difference. There were 6 Republicans that did not vote. So now we would have to force them into the situation where they have to declare their values. You have to vote.
Yeah.
And I think that is really important, because when you are in elected office, your responsibility is to be there, show up, and vote.
Okay. Let me just go back for a moment. I think there's a lot of people that are suggesting that the cuts to Medicaid are just essentially a reversal of a Biden era policy. As you've been with the TUSD for decades, how long have you known that every student in TUSD was able to get, breakfast and lunch through these programs? And
So
what did
free and reduced lunch
yeah.
Has been, oh my gosh, I don't know. I mean, I graduated in 89, and when I started school in 75, we had free and reduced lunch. I remember that.
So
yes. So it has been decades before I got there.
Okay.
And I do believe that it was even existing when my dad was in school in Sunnyside.
So we are rolling back the clock literally 50 years.
And what we're doing, I just want to highlight the need. So when we went down to COVID lockdown and I was president of the TUSD board, our priority was not how do we get devices? How do we start the classroom, virtual classroom? That wasn't day one priority. Day one priority was how do we get food to our kids?
Yeah.
Because we know that they are dependent on us for breakfast, lunch, snacks, and then many students take backpack food with them. So at the end, unlike that Friday afternoon, they go home with a backpack of food that our nonprofit partners and churches around all of our schools would put together so they would be able to eat over the weekend. That was our priority. Setting up a system for our school buses to drop off food was number one. In a nation like the United States and in a state like Arizona, for us to have so many children living in poverty is criminal. And the fact that we had to prioritize that first. It's a huge issue.
Yeah. I want to talk just a little bit about the environment. CD7 is got a lot of vast, untouched wilderness areas, and it seems to me that we are hearing whispers from the second Trump administration of changes to this, things that may threaten even tribal sovereignty in terms of projects. So, let me better understand a little bit of your economic or your views on the environment and how that ties to the economy. I mean, how do we balance that? And what does that look like if you were elected?
So one of the things that we did, the very first year I was on the Pima County Board of Supervisors, is how are we investing in acquiring more land of our untouched, prestigious, it's just such gorgeous Sonoran Desert. How are we protecting it? So the last time there was a big buy, and that was while my dad was on the board with bond funding of the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan. That's when this system exists and why Pima County looks so different than Maricopa County.
Yeah.
Like we protect our area, yes. And I think it's critically important to do that. So I suggested our office put together a plan and we put out $2 million a year to preserve heritage and open space, like, historic farming communities, that kind of stuff. Like how do we extend, the Catalinas or the Saguaro National Park? And so from encroachment of like development and stuff right at the front of all of these protected areas. So with that money, $2 million a year, we were able to save 7,700 acres of land forever. They now are Pima County property and protected. But one of the really cool things, it was my last vote, the last day I was a supervisor. My dad, there was this property called Kelly Ranch. And it was 109 acres of prestigious land. Like it's just beautiful, like just pristine, gorgeous. They had a farm in the middle. It's beautiful. And they wanted to knock down everything there and build 6,500 homes. And my dad was the third no vote way back. And so the property owner kept coming back to Pima County and every board said no. So one of the last votes on April 4th that I was able to take is acquiring Kelly Ranch and buying it to preserve it forever. And the only reason we could do that is because we had that $2 million a year that we could draw from. And so that was a very full circle moment because I'm like, now it's protected forever. It's going to be a museum. It's gorgeous. It's just, and it has riparian habitat. And why those things are important is because, yes, we could have had homes there, but it is the investment in protecting our environment that actually is a draw for people from all over the world to come here to Arizona. They come to see the Grand Canyon. They don't come to see a big hole where the Grand Canyon used to be and now has a bunch of tailings because we needed some ore there.
Right.
I think that, when we look at the pollution and the devastating effects to our air and water and soil, that's what we have to protect. Because my dad had a very aggressive cancer and doctors kept saying it's so aggressive. And I believe strongly that it is because he drank poison water from TCE and the Sunnyside plume that changed his DNA and makeup. It did. And when you live in a neighborhood where 6 young men under the age of 19 have testicular cancer, that is an environmental impact because of poison.
Yeah.
When you have people that have asthmas and rashes and rare cancers, that those are all over our community because we live in a Superfund site. So this protection of the environment is not just because I love a saguaro. I do love a saguaro. I love seeing animals and species. It's beautiful. But it is because we have to protect this area for future generations to enjoy and be able to have the quality of life that we have. And that is what my worry is about this administration, is that they don't care whether the land is a tribal land or state land, or it doesn't really matter. If they think that there is some sort of benefit to some ore that is in there, they don't care if they poison all of our water to get it. And I think that when we're looking at the mining law, an 1872 law that has not been significantly updated since then, you have to look at the royalties and where those go. You have to look at the fact that everything that we're digging out of our soil is being sent off somewhere else, brought back, and we pay for it. Like, it just is, it boggles the mind to me when we're talking about the balance between our environment and jobs. I don't think that has to be the choice. We have an opportunity in Arizona to have really sustainable green jobs, and we should explore those, because we have to look at the fact that when we destroy the scenic Santoritas to mine there are billions of dollars in tourism that come to the state of Arizona to come see areas like that. That's a lot of jobs too, and jobs that will continue to increase should we take care of our land the way we should. Okay. So it's about more than we have to have comprehensive understanding of it. And I think that I know in this race, I'm the best qualified candidate.
Okay. The last question is just turned back to you. We've had a chance to talk when you've answered all of my questions. What question haven't I asked that's important for voters to understand about you in this race?
It is the experience that I bring that I'm proud of. You know, I have lived in Southern Arizona right here my entire life, serving my community from the time I can remember. Yeah. You know, we just put out a commercial and there's a picture there of my mom and dad pushing me in a stroller. That's a march. I remember I remember going door to door and talking about these really important issues to our community. And I think that one thing I will say is, yes, I have been in elected office. So look at my record. Look at when I say I do something, what I've done. Look at the people that have supported this campaign, including both of our senators, former Representative Giffords, Senator Sanders, over 50 local elected officials throughout CD7. That's not including the state representatives, the congressional members. Like, I have the most union endorsements. I just got Jane Fonda pack. Come on. I mean, I'm excited about those things, but it's because of the work that I mean, all of these require questionnaires and interviews. Nothing has been handed over. This is an opportunity for us to reach out directly to voters. And that's why I'm doing interviews like this, because I want people to see that this is who I am. And to look me up, because when I commit to something, I do it. And I don't like the word politician because I know that it has like a negative connotation. But for me, we have a lot in Congress, especially, we have a lot of politicians and not enough public servants. And that's who I think I am. I would describe myself as a public servant, and it would be my honor and privilege to serve this community